On a snowy night, a black boy placed his hand on a dying woman and then disappeared. No cameras, no witnesses, no one believed he ever existed. But that quiet touch saved the life of a billionaire woman and uncovered a secret that could leave the whole world in stunned silence. This isn't a fairy tale. This is the truth, written in blood, tears, and a rebirth during the harshest winter of a human life. If you've ever felt invisible, this story is for you. On a bone-chilling winter night near the Canadian border, where snow blanketed every path and the wind howled through the cracks of an abandoned train station, a quiet story unfolded. No camera caught it, no scream echoed far, only a 12-year-old black boy shivering inside a torn coat, and a woman collapsed beneath the shattered glow of a broken yellow street lamp. Jalen was no hero. No one had ever taught him to save others. No one had ever saved him. All his life, he had learned to hide. From the stares of disgust, from the rotating shelters, from the cold itself, by sleeping under rusted train cars. But that night, when he heard hurried footsteps, a struggle, and a muffled scream swallowed by darkness, he didn't turn away like he always had. The woman, Ashley Dunn, was a billionaire, but lying there on the frozen ground, blood trickling down her forehead, her dress torn, her purse snatched, her designer heels snapped. She wasn't anyone. She was just a person, vulnerable, alone, fading, and in that moment, her eyes met his. Jalen didn't speak. He just ran. Knees shaking, he placed his small hand on hers and dialed 911 with a cracked phone screen. When she clutched his hand, her eyes clouded with pain, she whispered something. Something that broke Jalen open. If I don't make it, just know, you're the first one who didn't leave me. Just one sentence. But that's where it all began. The start of a journey that would change not just two lives, but the way we see trust, connection, and the quiet redemption that still exists in this world. Ashley Dunn. The name once graced the cover of Time magazine, hailed as the icon of global clean energy innovation. A woman of resilience and pride who defied the odds and built a billion-dollar empire from nothing. But there were things she lost along the way. Things money could never buy back. Friends slowly drifted away. Trusted partners vanished after heated boardroom battles. 2 marriages dissolved in silence, and the blow that shattered her the most was Elijah, her only son. The day he turned 17, Ashley stood in a grand hall, receiving an international award. But in the photo plastered across the media the next morning, Elijah was nowhere to be seen, because that day he packed a few clothes, left a note, and disappeared. You don't need me, Mom. You need to win, and I won't be your trophy anymore. Elijah vanished without a trace. No calls, no emails. No one knew where he went, not even Ashley, the woman who believed she controlled everything. She never told the press, never shed a tear in front of anyone. But every night, after her assistants left the office, she stayed behind, opened his last message, read it, deleted it, then the next morning, read it again, and deleted it again. No one knew that Ashley Dunn, this symbol of power, was a mother falling apart. And maybe that's why, on that freezing night, when a stranger's cold little hand reached for hers, she didn't flinch, didn't panic. She just whispered, "Don't go." Because deep down, she had grown far too used to being left behind. Jalen couldn't quite remember the last time someone called him by his real name. In the shelter system, he was a number. To strangers passing by, he was a shadow. And on that night, as snow fell thick and heavy, The 12-year-old boy curled up beneath a rusted train car. So cold, the metal itself had begun to crack. Jalen once had a mother, a woman who hummed little songs while washing his hair and held him tight on nights when the power went out. But she died in an accident when he was 5. His father never showed up. The foster system bounced him from one home to the next, each place leaving a new scar. At 9, he ran away. Not because he was wild, but because he was just too tired of asking for permission to exist. Since then, Jalen lived by instinct. He learned how to open restaurant dumpsters without making a sound, how to sneak into the train station bathroom to warm his hands over the heater. And he learned one brutal truth: people are kindest when they don't know you're there. Every time someone saw him, they frowned, grabbed their phone, or worse, chased him off like a stray dog. So Jalen learned to become invisible. He couldn't read much, but he could read adult faces, and in every pair of eyes, he was always a threat waiting to happen. That's why, on that night, when Jalen saw a woman beaten and left in a dark alley, his first instinct was to turn away. But her eyes saw him, a child worth holding on to. And in that fleeting moment, Jalen wasn't invisible anymore. That night, the wind slammed hard against the rusted metal walls of the abandoned train station. Snow fell silently, thick as sea foam, wiping away every footprint. Jalen was curled up behind a pile of damp cardboard boxes, trying to draw some warmth from the last bits of heat radiating off a nearby furnace wall. When he heard something, hurried footsteps, a purse being snatched, then a scream, cut short by the crack of a blow. Jalen pressed his eye to a crack in the wall. Under the fractured glow of a broken yellow street lamp, a woman in an expensive winter coat was pinned to the frozen wall by 2 strange men. One held her arms tight, the other swung a heavy iron rod. Like punishment, blood trickled from her forehead, soaking into the pristine white scarf around her neck. Jalen instinctively pulled back. This wasn't his business. But then, she looked up, her eyes locked with his, just for a second. But in that fleeting second, Jalen saw something he recognized too well. That crushing hopelessness he carried every night. To be beaten down, silenced, utterly alone. And more than that, she saw him, not as a stray, but as someone who could help. Jalen trembled, not from the cold, but from fear. Still he stood. No one told him to. No one promised anything in return. It was just that, for the first time, someone actually needed him. He stepped out of the shadows, phone in hand, small feet shaking against the frozen ground. For the first time in his life, Jalen didn't run. He chose to stay. Jalen knelt beside the woman. His small hand trembled as he pressed it to her cheek, cold and slick with blood. She was still breathing, barely, shallow, broken. He pulled out his old phone, its screen cracked like a spider web. The only thing he'd managed to keep after running from the bullies at his last shelter. His fingers tapped the keypad. He dialed emergency. Please, someone's been hurt. There's so much blood. Hurry. Jalen's voice cracked, swept away by the wind. He gripped his torn scarf and pressed it to the wound on her forehead, trying to stop the bleeding. His hands were covered in blood. The snow turned red, but he didn't leave. He didn't run. He stayed. Ashley opened her eyes again. In the dim light, she could see the boy's face, terrified, but steady, his small hand holding hers. And that, not his words, not his actions, just that touch, was what made her cry. You, she whispered. You're the first one who didn't leave me. Jalen held his breath. She was still bleeding, but it wasn't the blood that shook him. It was those words. If I don't make it, please remember, You didn't just save my life. You saved the last bit of faith I had left in people." The sentence shattered, like ice melting under the first light of dawn. Then she choked, gasped, blood spread beneath her head, and in one final breath before losing consciousness, Ashley forced out one more thing. "I wish my son had a heart like yours." Jalen froze. He'd been called garbage, invisible, a burden on society. But in that moment, a dying woman wished her son was like him. Amid blood and snow, a single tear rolled down Jalen's cheek. For the first time in his life, he felt like he mattered. Ashley woke up in the quiet white room of a local hospital. The sharp scent of antiseptic filled each breath. Her head throbbed. Her body ached like she'd just survived a snowstorm. Fragments rushed back, the clang of a metal rod hitting pavement, blood on her face, and the eyes of that boy. She opened her eyes wide, grabbed the nurse's hand beside her, and rasped, "The boy, the one who called for help. Where is he?" The nurse looked puzzled. "There was no boy recorded, Ms. Dunn. Police only found you, unconscious in the alley. No one else was there." Ashley froze. She demanded to see the nearby security footage. The images were grainy, snow-blurred, flickering. You could see the two attackers fleeing. You could see her collapse. But the boy's face? Unclear. Every camera angle missed him. The hospital report stated she'd been discovered after an anonymous emergency call. No ID, no name, no trace. Police closed the file with a simple note. Possibly just a homeless passerby. People like that usually disappear. But Ashley wouldn't accept that. That boy didn't just pass by. He sat with me, held my hand, and said things no one's ever said to me. You can't fake eyes like that. She knew the world could look away. She knew the system could forget. But her heart couldn't. And in that moment, amid the steady beep of the heart monitor, Ashley whispered, like a promise to the void, "If no one knows your name, then I'll be the one to find you." What she didn't know was that this search would lead her to a truth far greater than the kind of woman itself, who had an entire team of assistants, just to manage her meeting schedule and choose her coffee color. But after that fateful night, she turned off her phone, canceled every engagement, and cut off the long hair that once graced magazine covers. No more bodyguards, no more reporters, no more titles. She walked the snow-covered streets in an old coat, stiff boots, and carried in her hand a list of known homeless youth hotspots. Every day, she crossed frozen overhangs, public heating shelters, soup kitchens, abandoned train stations, even the crumbling tunnels beneath the city. In her hand was always the same thing, a rough sketch, the boy's face she couldn't fully recall, only the eyes. By day 7, she caught a cold. By day 13, she was turned away, trying to enter a shelter. But she didn't stop. If the world forgets that boy, then I'll be the one who remembers. I owe him a thank you, a second chance at life. And then, on day 22, at the edge of a small forest, beside a snow-covered rotting wooden bench, Ashley saw a shape she couldn't forget. Jalen, curled up in a thin jacket, clutching a worn-out blanket. Beside him, a battered wire basket holding scraps of leftover food. She approached slowly, as if any sudden move might make him vanish. Jalen startled awake. His eyes flew open. He sprang to his feet and backed away instinctively. I didn't take anything from you." Ashley's throat tightened. Then, she smiled, stepping closer. "No, Jalen, you didn't take anything. You gave me everything, a chance to start over. And this time, I won't waste it." Ashley didn't come with promises. She didn't bring sponsorship contracts, didn't flash a credit card or offer the keys to a high-rise. The only things she brought were a folding chair, a bag of warm food, and a heart that knew what it felt like to have a stranger hold your hand at the edge between life and death. She sat beside Jalen every day. She didn't force him to eat. She didn't push him to talk. She just sat, as if her presence alone was a whisper saying, "You can stay silent, and I'll still be here." Some days they sat for hours, just watching the snow fall. Some days, Jalen handed her half a stale sandwich, a silent test, and she ate it, without a single complaint. Redemption didn't come from speeches. It came from not walking away. On the third week, Jalen finally asked, "Do you have a son?" Ashley froze. Her heart clenched like someone had reached inside and squeezed. She never thought she'd say it out loud. But today, to the boy who once held her hand in the freezing dark, she told the truth. "I did. His name was Elijah, but I was too busy to listen, and in the end, I let him go." Jalen didn't say a word. He just lowered his head, but for the first time, he shifted slightly closer to her chair. Didn't touch her, didn't speak, just a little closer. And to Ashley, that was the first act of forgiveness. No words, just presence. After nearly 2 months of silent companionship, Jalen began to open up. He started eating more, sleeping indoors, and, for the first time, allowed someone to touch his shoulder without flinching. Ashley, though always respectful of his space, had quietly prepared everything he might need to step out of street life. One snowy morning, she took Jalen to an identity registration center, a place that helps homeless youth recover lost records and begin a new life. The staff member asked for his full name. Jalen stayed silent. They took a fingerprint sample, in case he'd once been in the foster care system. Just a routine step, until the computer let out a long beep, and the staff member slowly looked up. His name used to be Elijah Dunn. Ashley froze. Her blood turned to ice. Her breath caught in her throat. She stepped forward to the desk, hands trembling, voice nearly breaking. What did you just say?" The file says, "Elijah Dunn. Transferred to a shelter 2 years ago after running away, but entered under the name Jalen Brown due to a confidentiality request. No legal guardian could be confirmed, so the file was closed." Jalen's eyes widened. I don't remember that name." Ashley said nothing. Tears slipped quietly down her cheeks. She looked at the boy. The eyes, the posture, the small hand that once clutched hers on a stormy night. It was all her son, and he began to understand. The woman he thought he had saved from death was the woman who had given him life. 2 souls who had once lost each other, who had once rejected each other through silence, anger, and fear, had unknowingly saved one another. In the dark, without ever realizing, they had always belonged to each other. After the shock of learning the truth that Jalen was Elijah, Ashley was no longer the woman she once was, no longer driven by leaderboards, no longer speaking in data and strategy. She lived now to hold on to what she had nearly lost, to protect what she had once forgotten. She did, her son, was return to where it all began. The cold alleyway on that snowy night. With the help of private investigators, local police, and advanced facial recognition technology from a tech company she had once invested in, Ashley tracked down the 2 men who had attacked her. One was hiding in a neighboring state with a string of theft charges. The other was arrested during a petty robbery, still carrying the iron rod that had cracked her skull that night. They were prosecuted, and Ashley, barefaced, wearing a simple gray suit, took the witness stand in a winter courtroom. Reporters filled every seat, but her voice didn't shake. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because of a child who once held my hand and gave me a reason to keep living. She paused, looked toward Elijah, sitting in the back row, face uncovered now, proud. I forgive you, but I do not forget, because children like my son should not have to live in a world where people like you walk free. Silence blanketed the courtroom, not out of fear, but because everyone in that room felt the weight of truth in every word. What once seemed like just another assault case had become something greater, a trial of justice, redemption, and human grace. On a gentle autumn afternoon at a youth summit in Toronto, an event honoring young people who had risen above adversity, the final name called brought a brief hush over the auditorium. Elijah Dunn. He walked onto the stage in a crisp white shirt, buttoned to the top, his curls neatly brushed back, his eyes steady but cautious. Behind him, hundreds of eyes followed, but the only gaze that mattered belonged to the woman seated in the front row, her hands clenched tightly, as if holding together a heart on the verge of breaking. Elijah stood before the microphone, short, simple, unpolished, but every word hit like truth to the spine. I once lived without a name, no future. No one ever asked where I came from or where I was going. I used to hate my mother because I thought she chose everything except me. He paused, took a deep breath. But one winter night, I helped a stranger in the snow. She was bleeding, fading, collapsing. I didn't know that the woman I saved was my mother. The entire auditorium fell silent. We lost each other without knowing it. But through one hand held in the dark, we found each other again, in the light. Elijah turned to look at Ashley. She was no longer a CEO, no longer Woman of the Year. She was just a mother, hands trembling, face buried in them, crying like a child who'd just been forgiven. And then, the entire room stood, not for the title, not for the miracle, but because they had just witnessed something rare, a family once shattered, stitched back together by the very thing it had lacked all along, unconditional love. And this wasn't the end. It was the beginning, from snow to light, from invisible to seen, from victim to guide, and maybe the real miracle wasn't that Elijah found his mother again, but that two people, once lost to each other in the chaos of life, recognized one another through a single hand held in the dark. No one is perfect. No one can rewrite the past. But sometimes, a single act of kindness, no matter how small, can unlock a door we thought had been sealed forever. If today you feel forgotten, if you've ever believed that kindness means nothing in this world, then remember Jalen, the boy who didn't walk away. And remember this: we don't need to have everything to be the one who changes everything. All it takes is to stay when someone needs us most. Thank you for walking this journey to the end. And if this story touched you, share it so its light can keep spreading.